So yes, welcome back to the Lotus Sutra. I'm going to talk about chapter 13 today. And Jean Reeves entitles this Two Nuns, but also in a number of translations of the Lotus Sutra, it's also entitled Encouragement to Uphold the Sutra. And these titles both point to two very important events that happen in chapter 13. But before I start with chapter 13, I just want to say a little bit about chapter 12, entitled The Dragon Princess. Chapter 12 starts with Manjushri Bodhisattva, who is among this assembly of people, who is asked if he has ever met someone who is qualified to become a Buddha quickly. And he says, oh yes, I have met the 8-year-old daughter of a dragon king. And then he goes on to talk about how exceptional this young girl is. And there's a bodhisattva there who's very skeptical and starts talking about why this can't happen. And then suddenly, out of the depths of the ocean where she lives, the dragon princess comes into the scene, turns to the Buddha and says, only the Buddha can know if I'm qualified for this. Shariputra is also there. And Shariputra has a lot of doubts. And he starts to say that, first of all, it takes a very long time to become a Buddha. And this girl is too young, and she has not done the study that is needed, and so on and so forth. And then he also says, oh, and also, she's a woman. And upon that, the dragon princess, in a flash, becomes a man, shows everyone the depth of her supreme awakening, and the assembly rejoices and accepts her teachings. In chapter 13, this question of a woman's capacity to become fully awakened is decidedly put to rest. This is the most important appearance in the Lotus Sutra of the two nuns, Mahaprajapati and Yashodhara, these two respected, strong women that are family of the Buddha and also his students. So I would like to read the story from our book, and it's short, and then talk about it a bit. Mahaprajapati, described as a sister of the Buddha's mother, along with 6,000 nuns, all get up from their seats, put their palms together in veneration, and look intently at the face of the Buddha. Then the Buddha, speaking to her with a term of familiar address, Gotami, asks her why she is looking so perplexed. Deep down, he asks, are you wondering why I have not mentioned your name to assure you of supreme awakening? Then he proceeds to assure her that in ages to come, still accompanied by the 6,000 nuns, she will become a bodhisattva who is a great Dharma teacher, gradually fulfilling the bodhisattva way and eventually becoming the Buddha named, seen with joy by all the living. As that Buddha, she would in turn assure 6,000 bodhisattvas, presumably her 6,000 nun followers, of supreme awakening. Yashodhara, here described as the mother of Rahula, and also this is the wife of the Buddha, and a nun, thinks to herself, among the Buddha's assurances of supreme awakening, I'm the only one here who hasn't been mentioned. Then the Buddha assures her too that she will become a great Dharma teacher. And by doing bodhisattva practice under hundreds of thousands of billions of Buddhas in ages to come, gradually fulfilling the bodhisattva way, and eventually becoming the Buddha called having 10 million shining characteristics. The two nuns, full of joy, then praise the Buddha for giving them peace of mind and promise to go everywhere to proclaim the Dharma Flower Sutra, even to other lands and other regions. So this to me, when I first read it, and also since I have subsequently read it, is a very powerful scene to me. There is the silent, two nuns silently standing palms together, gazing intently at the Buddha, waiting. And to me, there's their strength, but also there's a real vulnerability in this scene. There's a possibility, although we know it didn't happen this way, but there's a possibility at that moment of maybe disapproval or rejection. And we know that Mahaprajapati, who had been studying with the Buddha for many years, had gone to the Buddha and asked to be ordained as a nun. And she was turned down 3 times. And it took Ananda, with rather skillful means, to convince the Buddha that yes, in fact, he should ordain Mahaprajapati. So to me, there's these strong women standing here in this scene with the Buddha and also their family member. But also I feel, when I kept reading this over and thinking about it, I mostly what I feel, I think, and see in this scene, and in all 3 people actually, is something that Roshi Joan Halifax from Upaya Zen Center calls strong back, soft front. And Mary Ellen talked to us about this, I think it was way back in January or February, after going to a conference where Roshi Joan spoke. But this idea of strong back, of residing in a place of equanimity with composure, but fully open to whatever is coming, fully open to the not knowing. This kind of groundedness in groundlessness. And soft front, this embodiment of wholehearted, boundless compassion for ourselves and others. This strength that we have in vulnerability and openness. And to me, this also, I'm understanding I'm a very visual person. This also looks like us on the cushion to me, right? It looks like what our practice looks like, and looks like what our practice cultivates. And so this scene to me, I feel a lot and see a lot in it. And of course, the Buddha does predict their Buddhahood, but he goes much further than that. He says that, and this is the only time he says this in the Lotus Sutra. He says that they will both be great Dharma teachers. So these 2 nuns, who are his family, represent really all women and the capacity of all women. This is an assurance from the Buddha that not only can women become Buddhas, but they are and will be teachers, and everyone, including men, can learn from them. In fact, Jean Reeves says that this is the opportunity to meet the Buddha in all women. And I would add to that that includes, obviously, all the women in our own lives. Certainly those upholding the Bodhisattva vows, Mary Ellen, obviously holding up the Bodhisattva vows, Mary Ellen and Baika and Alice, and all of our female ancestors. But also all the women in our lives who live by their own compassionate vows, our grandmothers and our mothers, our aunts, our sisters, showing up in our lives, and with the capacity also of strong backs and soft fronts. So chapter 13 is mostly focused on these 2 women, but also at the gathering here are thousands of bodhisattvas and monks and nuns who all vow to the Buddha that they will continue the teachings after his death. And they say they will continue this everywhere, through all the lands, forever and ever. And if you read the translations of the Lotus Sutra, in this chapter, there are many verses that detail the kinds of difficulties and the kinds of challenges that they're going to have. In fact, the words in the Lotus Sutra are that it will be a frightful, evil age. And in giving detail about this, they talk about, this is his followers talking, they talk about the fact that there will be pretenders, many pretenders who use the teachings for their own personal gain and their own power. There will be hostility and intolerance and arrogance. And in fact, they say that they will actually be driven out and exiled. And of course, in spite of that, there is a promise from each one of them that they will steadfastly continue teaching the Dharma that the Buddha has entrusted to them. So it's not difficult to imagine this world that they're looking at in the future. This is our world. And even though, of course, things are very dire, they're looking at things in a very dire way. I kind of ask myself, okay, what does their vow look like? What does it mean in those times? What does their enduring practice and commitment look like? And what about ours? What about our vows? What does our practice look like during these difficult, challenging times in which we're living right now? Most of the time when I have conversations with people about what their lives look like right now, there is always hope. There's some kind of hope. And sometimes it's with fingers crossed, and sometimes looking up in heavens. But I learned very early on, in no uncertain terms, when I was practicing in the Theravadan tradition in Thailand, that there's a kind of hope, this clinging hope that has some sort of objective to it or outcome to it, is not our practice. And, it's not, at the same time, it's not just some sort of rosy optimism either. At the beginning of this week, I was looking for something on my phone in notes, and I came across a note that I had written, just this one short sentence I had written in August, September of 2019. And this was around the time that I was recovering from having fallen and having the first concussion of my life. And it was a quote from the author, Barbara Kingsolver. And all I had written in this note, so it showed up when I'm just flipping through my notes, is it said, quote, "Hope is a mode of resistance." And I remember just being taken aback by that. It was so profound to me. And I didn't look anywhere for what she meant, because it just came into my life at a time when I felt like it's just what I need the way I need it. But I did look it up for this talk because I felt that that sentence was important in the context of what I wanted to say. So Barbara Kingsolver explains it this way. And this is a quote: "The pessimist would say, it's going to be a terrible winter, we're all going to die. And the optimist would say, oh, it'll be all right. I don't think it'll be that bad. But the hopeful person would say, maybe someone will still be alive in February. So I'm going to put some potatoes in the root cellar just in case." This hope as a mode of resistance. And resistance to what, I'll let you decide, and maybe that changes every single day. But what this hope has is it's about action. It's not a feeling. It's about our actions performed with whole hearts and bodies and minds, according to our vows, but also according to whatever vow you have. Something Roshi Joan also calls wise hope, this kind of hope that's free of attachment to outcome and, in her words, victorious over fear. This is what I think activists feel. And those of us who are putting time into whatever social cause it is in the elections, times that things seem so incredibly insurmountable. But, personally, I've certainly had a lot of unwise hope, a lot of fearful hope. And, that's our practice too, just being aware of the fear. And I certainly had that around my concussion a year ago. You know, is my brain going to ever be able to put two sentences together correctly in terms of connections of ideas? I hope that I'll walk the same. It certainly is something I'm feeling around these Dharma talks as Yoshu So. Hoping and getting all tied up about how the talk goes and being fully prepared and perfecting parts of it, polishing parts of it. It's difficult, this kind of hope. It's really gut-wrenching. And Central Camp, our beloved home in the mountains that the creek fire was barreling towards, hoping and fearing this loss. But, you know, this kind of hope, this clinging kind, though ultimately through our practice and through our own Buddha nature, this can change into action that is supportive and beneficial to everyone, including ourselves. You know, just to take the cabin, we all offered our cabins to the firefighters. We're putting, you know, people put water out for animals all around the mountains. I know many of you did. And so maybe we have both kinds of hope most of the time, but this is our practice. This is our willingness to be in the moment and fully open to whatever arises. And to also make the effort to do what's most beneficial at the moment, what's needed at this very moment. And you might think of that in terms of what we've been talking about here, which is earlier in our talks, we were talking about skillful means. Doing what's right for the moment. And that depends upon us and our abilities and our understanding of the situation. That depends upon the situation itself, and it depends upon what's best for everybody involved in the situation. So after reading this over again, reading over this, this particular chapter, and really sinking into what I was feeling around it, I'm thinking maybe this is what Mahaprajapati and Yashodhara embodied, standing there in front of the Buddha. And maybe this is actually what motivated over eons of time, thousands of bodhisattvas and monks and nuns to continue the teaching, to continue the path, continue to be the hands and feet and heart of Buddha. And maybe this is the salve, if you will, for the seemingly impossible reality of our bodhisattva vows. We are vowing to awaken with all beings, to end all delusions, and to transform all suffering. So I would say, may we all have strong backs, soft fronts, and wise hope. Thank you.